Thank you for your introduction. May I now request our speaker, Mr. Rathore, to come and address you. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry that no presentation, so I've been standing here as and probably be more comfortable here. But it's interesting to see the diversity of portfolios and projects that you all are working on. I will give you a little bit of a background. I went to a boarding school in India, not knowing what I really want to do, of course. Coming from a small town called Jodhpur, which in those days had two telephones. So you had to wait to make a phone call. If you wanted to find out about universities abroad, you had to book the call in the morning, and perhaps you got some luck in your way and you managed to connect to the university to find out, because there was no internet in the evening. So to me, I could only rely purely on the idea of dreams. And most of my friends are running hotels in Rajasthan right now. They have all these old Havelis and palaces that they've converted into boutique hotels. So I've grown up in that same environment, but I had a certain amount of luck with education. I went away to America for some 10 years, and I studied philosophy, Greek mythology. I studied robotics, electronics. Then I finally settled down on design. So I started my journey from a place called Hampshire College in Amherst, and then I moved to Marlborough College up in Vermont. Studied with people with big beards, and nobody believed in the idea of fashion. It was a very philosophical campus. And soon after that, I moved to New York to pursue design. I had a mother who raised me in Parda, which basically is a very cultural atmosphere where no men can walk into the quarters. So all the ladies live together, and the men are isolated downstairs. So I had the luxury of really having a mother throughout my childhood who painted a lot. She painted, she used a lot of arts in her early years, and since there were no assisting people raising me, I remember my first sense of confidence was with using something with my hands. And I actually wanted to explore this. So from the last educational campus, which was Marlborough in Vermont, I chose to move on to the design school, Boston School of Design in New York, where after studying there for 4 years, I was picked up by DKNY to be their assistant designer for the Donna Karan DKNY line. I understood, the sensibilities of using simpler fabrics, simpler techniques. How do you sell an idea to somebody who's already been there in the market for the last 10, 15 years? For example, a knit t-shirt. You had to present it differently every season. So it was a very interesting evolution from still going to Parsons School of Design, working at DKNY, supporting myself, and then shortly after that, in the elevator in the same building, Mr. Di Lorenzo asked me a question, and I said, well, I can do that. So he asked me to come and show me my portfolio. So ethically, it was very wrong for me to just walk across to another competing brand, but I just wanted to take the challenge up. I went and met him. He hired me 7 days later. I worked as an assistant. My main job was, and there were 3 assistants. That's a huge $800 million company had 3 design assistants, which were a different line. Then we did the fur department, which was getting a lot of heat in those days. We launched 2 perfumes, and eventually I came back to India. I started my own business. I could have worked for a brand also, because I went for an interview to a brand called, will come back to me, but it was the only brand that actually was trying to make an attempt to be the first Indian luxury brand. Ravi Song, it's still I think around, I'm not sure what happened with them. But to me the biggest question really was that, you guys are doing all these researches. I personally haven't been able to find out a single brand from India which I can say is a luxurious brand. An Indian brand. That's the biggest challenge that really alarms me. And I also wake up in the morning and do what I do because I really want to find the answer to it. Where did we go wrong? Every product that we sell is a Western product. There's not a single product that you can carry back from India except that little marble Taj Mahal that you get in Agra on the street. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, what do you give somebody? Tea, and that's it. There is nothing else there. So there is a huge, a complex problem that we actually speak about our history, we speak about our culture, we speak about the richness of the past, but no one's been able to package the idea of luxury the way the global world sees luxury. And I also believe there's a big mismatch in the way you present a product. I mean, we saw the car presentation, and I think rightly so, they have to do what they have to do. But to me, luxury cannot be sold through the communication channels that exist right now. I think every magazine, every media house is trying to meet eyeballs. So you'll end up getting a segment that will be brought into the store, commercialize your idea, or democratize your design idea. Let's say it's a bag. And then no one else in the right segment will want to buy that bag because everybody has that. So there's a dilemma, because money is not a problem in India. The amount of money people have who have bad aesthetics is phenomenal. I mean, the only country that hires a designer like me to create bad aesthetic products. That's the brief given to me for a recent project we did for a clothing company in Bombay, that we do not want good aesthetics. We want this to sell. So when I say, for an example, to have a collar which sticks outside the jacket, a shirt was designed to stick outside a jacket like this, which to me is a conflict in terms of design, what I studied all these years, but it was a required design. So the surveys that they are doing in these big corporate spaces are for selling more volumes. And the brand somehow is sold in a different parallel structure, which is luxury, to idolize something which builds aspiration. But to me, I think there's a conflict somewhere there. So it's interesting because when we designed jewelry for Tanishq last 2 years ago, they gave me a handsome amount of rewards for that. My goal was to design a collection which would have 200 designs. And they'd given us a target that we should do this much business. And so we had a free hand. That was my request that, so they said, why don't you take up this store called Zoya? I'm referring to this because I know you guys are working on the project. We took the store as if I was designing it from the scratch. They gave us a free hand with campaign, budgets, and aesthetics of the design. So I'm just saying that now, leaping from this awareness that you cannot design everything which has aesthetics, because the market is not responding to that. That segment that we're talking about aesthetics, they want the store to come to their house. They don't want to walk into a store where, a diamond, they're buying a diamond for 60 lakhs, and they're sitting in an atmosphere where there are people who they know will know that you bought the diamond from there. So there's a conflict in the way we are addressing retail, luxury retail. The same thing now applies to boutique hotels. I know somebody's working on boutique hotels and spas. I think there's a conflict again in the way you need to meet your bottom lines and the aesthetics that you want to create. So when you create a product, when you create a hotel or a spa, you have an earnest thought process that I want to make it world famous, have the Indian oils and the Ayurvedic stuff. But when you start realizing that you have to increase your bottom line from the sales, you start shifting into a different area, which is again where the conflict area is, which I always think is a very dangerous area. So in a nutshell, what I want to summarize my little introduction is that this is a complex country with a very complex, it's a rose with a thorny stem. You cannot be able to use a template which has worked elsewhere. You just cannot. There are 2 seasons that are happening at the same time. We're doing spring and summer at the same time. And nowhere else in the world we work on 2 collections together. And that applies because every product has a seasonal cycle. So if you don't adapt your product or your packages or whatever it may be for shorter cycles, like what Zara does, they change the product every 7 days or 15 days. I think it's brilliant. That suits the Indian climate very well. So if you're putting all your research together, I think we must highlight these things which work in a country like India, which may not work in China or the other Asian belt. So what I want to do is to have an interactive discussion. If you have any questions, I could have shown you lots of presentations. But in a nutshell, what we do is we design other people's problems in terms of design. We designed a hotel in Jaisalmer recently. We designed gold coins for a company that wanted to emulate a 300-year-old history. Jewelry I've mentioned. We're designing some whiskey packaging for international luxury whiskey. We also have done bakery. We designed a packaging for somebody recently, which again had this brief that we want to cater both the segments. There was utter confusion because how can you sell? So we had the Air Force, which is a very big market in India. The army and the military and the Air Force single-handedly buy so much bakery product. So the packaging was designed with two colors. And interestingly enough, the same dilemma applied where you had to package, the red was for those guys and the blue was for those guys, which is, it's crazy. I mean, it only happens in a country like that. So anyway, I will leave the floor open, and I know most discussions of luxury have already taken place and how people see it from the corporate side, and also, but please, when you summarize this discussion, just answer my question, if anybody can answer it now, that's great, is that please try to put a finger on one product that you think is luxurious and comes out of India. That's my summary. I think it's been the last 10 years, I've asked my colleagues, I've asked people who teach in design schools, and there is no product that anybody can come up with. So help me on the dilemma, and if you have any questions, please. It's very different from the previous two speakers who have no presentation, but if any of you would like to know a little bit more, then I'm here for much longer. Yeah.
You said that you have had several experiences abroad. You talked about Paris and other capitals. When you are working for a company located abroad, do you work in partnership, in collaboration with local people?
No, I was a student. I was just graduated. I got a job like everybody else. We've been in touch with him.